My bride's betrayal story! A week before his wedding, Ryan brushed off a client's last call and came home early, hoping to rehearse his wedding vows. He opened the front door and was surprised to see his beautiful bride dressed to the hilt. Black cocktail dress, string of pearls, sheer black stockings, and high heels. She looks good, he thought. You're early! Her shrill voice gave away the terror she felt inside as her plan to avoid confrontation began to crumble. At first, Ryan thought he'd forgotten about the dinner date, so he flashed his best smile, kissed his fiancée, and announced, "Give me 10 minutes and I'll be clean-shaven and ready to go." "Go where?" Caroline trembled as the words flew from her lips. He froze in place. "With you, of course, for looking so hot." After a meaningful pause, the bride replied, "Darling, I'm so sorry, but you misunderstood me. Oh my God, I was so dreading this conversation that I was going to leave you a note explaining everything." Ryan was even more confused when he noticed that Caroline had a travel bag next to the front door. She saw where he was looking. "I won't be home this weekend." "I'm confused." "What do you mean you won't be home? I'm so fired up about wedding planning, I have to go away." "Where are you going?" "A hotel downtown." "All alone?" It took her over a minute to answer. "I'll be with a friend." Ryan took a deep breath. "Since you didn't give your friend's name, is it safe to assume you'll be with a man?" Caroline looked guilty as sin. "It's not like that at all. He's just a friend." Ryan's voice grew louder. He started hammering his fists in the air as if he could force the words into submission. "You're going to share a room with a man a week before our wedding, and you want me to believe he's just a friend? I need this weekend." "Who's the asshole who's going to share a bed with you?" His voice filled the room. "It's not like that at all. He's my friend I'm talking to." "Talking about what?" "About us, our relationship. Is he an experienced psychiatrist or a psychologist?" Caroline stared at the floor and answered nothing. "Is he a licensed therapist or a counselor?" Again, no answer. "He's a good listener," she muttered. "A good listener," Ryan growled. "You're going to spend the weekend before our wedding with some asshole because he's a good listener." Caroline lowered her head even lower. Her shoulders slumped and she seemed to be melting. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." Ryan waited until she lifted her head. She sobbed and mascara dripped down her cheeks. 2 hours of preparation for hell took less than 2 minutes. "I'm going to ask you one last time. Who is this asshole?" "Promise me you won't hurt him." "I promise I'll find out who he is and I'll kill him if you do." "That's what I promise." Caroline collapsed to the floor and curled up like a whimpering puppy that had just chewed on its master's favorite slippers. "Stand up and answer me." There was still no answer. Ryan ripped the mirror off the hallway wall and threw it across the room. It exploded, hitting the dining room wall. Shards of glass spattered onto the wooden floor. Caroline jumped to her feet. "That's why I was going to turn off my phone and leave you a note explaining why I had to do that." The look on Ryan's face startled Caroline. "So if I came home at the usual time, you'd be gone?" No answer, but a nod. Ryan struggled to keep his composure. "And you were going to sneak off to spend the weekend with another man and leave me a note." Ryan opened his briefcase and pulled out a notepad and pen. He tossed them on the dining room table and pulled up a chair. It had better be a good note. "Start writing." Caroline sat down and started writing. After a few minutes, she stopped and set the pen aside. He waited for her to hand him the notebook. When she didn't, he snatched it from her. She wrote exactly one sentence. "Next week, I'm going to start a new chapter of my life, and I have to do it before it's too late." Ryan looked shocked. His voice trembled with excitement when he asked, "Tell me the truth. Were you going to admit that you were leaving with another man?" "If I had more time, I would have explained my feelings." "You didn't answer my question. I would try to phrase it this way. You'll agree that what I did was for us, to make our marriage stronger." "That's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. How could your affair make our marriage stronger? He didn't give her a chance to answer. People get divorced when one of them has an affair. Marriages end because of affairs. So do engagements. This caught her off guard. She never thought Ryan would threaten to cancel their wedding over this. Caroline tried to think of a way to justify her actions. Finding none, she gave up and blurted out, "I couldn't tell you because I knew you would react badly." Badly! The word flicked a switch and Ryan exploded. "What are you talking about? It's not bad yet. This is your last chance. I'm not marrying you next week or at all unless you give me his name right now. The wedding's off. How's that? Is that bad?" Caroline grabbed his wrists. "Ryan, please don't say that. I love you more than anything in the world, but this is what I have to do." He broke free. "Tell me his name." Silence. "You have one last chance. Tell me his name, or get out of my house and never come back." "Ryan, please don't say that. I love you." "You really have one way of showing it." He opened the front door. "That's the last time I'm gonna say that. Tell me his name, or get out of my house." Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. Scott Jenkins from work. "Your boss. That asshole is older than your father," Ryan shouted. Caroline howled like a banshee trying to get out of hell. "Have you made love to him yet?" There was no answer. "Have you slept with him yet?" Caroline stared silently at her feet. "Have you slept with him?" Caroline covered her face with her hands. "Though your silence speaks louder than any words, I'm still waiting for an answer." She nodded affirmatively. That simple gesture struck Ryan harder than any baseball bat. His heart raced, and he thought he was having a heart attack. He felt dizzy and grabbed the table to keep from falling. Caroline stood there, afraid to say anything. Ryan took a few deep breaths before he could speak. "As I recall from the Christmas party, he's married. What does his wife think about him having sex with a beautiful blonde half her age?" "She doesn't mind. She's going through menopause and hasn't been able to have sex in almost a year." "Did she tell you that herself?" "No, Mr. Jenkins, Scott. He said she was too embarrassed to talk about it. Why don't we call her and ask her?" "No, Scott said that would humiliate her even more." "Give me your phone. I'm willing to take that chance. I don't have his home number, just his cell phone. That means the asshole's sneaking around behind his wife's back. No, he respects her feelings and doesn't want her to feel like a lesser woman." "I can't believe how stupid you are to defend him. I can't stand it. I'm giving you a choice. Leave or be thrown out." "How dare you speak to me like that? What would you call an engaged woman having an affair with a married man?" No answer. She turned away from him and started muttering something to herself. "Before you go, I have one more question. Why were you going to spend the weekend with another man?" She finally spoke up. "It's all your fault, you know that." "It's my fault. What are you talking about? When we got serious, you admitted that you had sex with 3 girls before me. You were the only man I ever had sex with. I told you it didn't matter, but after talking to Scott, it started to gnaw at me, and I knew I would eventually cheat on you to make things work out. Scott said that if our marriage was going to be successful, we should enter into it as equals. He said I should do it now because I told him that you always said you would never stay married to a woman who cheats on you. We are not married, so I would even the score. Then I'll never cheat on you after we're married." "What? Are you crazy? That was before I met you. I've been 100% faithful to you since our first date," Ryan continued. "So you put our entire future on trash spewed by a horny old man who wanted to sleep with a girl half his age." "No, it's not like that at all. I mean, yeah, we talked about it. He made me realize how unfair it was to me. But he never tried to manipulate me. So it never occurred to you that he had a vested interest in you tying the score?" "No, it wasn't like that. He was just trying to help us." "Don't be ridiculous. What exactly did the good listener say that would help us?" "He didn't say much, but he helped me think things through. He made me realize that I had the right to have sex with 3 different men so that we could enter our marriage as equals. Ryan, I've enjoyed sex with another man, but I love you so much I'm willing to settle for one. Caroline grinned stupidly as if she'd played a trump card. Settle for one? Ryan gave her a hard look. If it wasn't so pathetic, I'd laugh. I'm so confused. When Scott was explaining it, it made so much sense. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You're right. You and I were supposed to be together forever, faithful to each other. Ryan looked like he was about to snap. How do you think I'm going to react when I find out you're making love to your boss? No! No! You're turning this around. Then tell me, what do you think's going to happen when you get home from the weekend? Did you think I'd be a good little cuckold and thank the old man for sleeping with my fiancé? No, I was hoping you'd never find out. I love you. I never meant to hurt you. It would have been my little secret, hidden forever. You thought you'd go away for the weekend, just turn off your phone and disappear without telling me where you were going, and I wouldn't realize you'd cheated on me. He looked at her like she was the village idiot, and yet she went on talking. Even if you find out, I know that you love me enough to realize the justice of it, and we'll get married and live happily ever after. Justice! That word reeked of rage. What of everything you know about me made you believe that I would still marry you after you had an affair? Scotty said. Scotty said. Shouted Ryan to her. He's an asshole who found a naive woman he could control. No. He's a very caring man who wanted to help our marriage succeed. How many times have you had sex with him or any other man? I swear, no other men. Then how many times did you have sex with him? Not that many, 7 or 8. You made love to another man 7 or 8 times while we were engaged, and you don't think that's much. I did it for us, Caroline sobbed, to make our marriage work. Remember that conversation when I admitted I wasn't single before you? I never told you I'd had sex with 3 girls before you. I just said I had sex 3 times. Each time I went out with Sally McDonough, the girl I was doing well with before I met you. We were going to run away together after graduation. That stopped quickly when her mother caught us naked. You know how that story ended. They left town the next day and I never heard from her again. You and I met the next month. Since that day, I've never kissed another woman, let alone made love. Caroline felt nauseous. So you're 7 or 8 to 3 ahead of me? I guess I'd have to sleep with 4 or 5 more women to make us equal. No, You think this asshole is going to say I'm entitled to 4 or 5 different women to make us equal? What about your best friend Laura? You always said you didn't trust her around me. Maybe your sister? She's not seeing anyone. No, Ryan, please, no. Give me one good reason why not. I'm ending this affair and I'm not going away with him this weekend. You have to understand I made a mistake, but I did it for us. No. You did it for you and only you. Please, Ryan, give me another chance. She begged me. You're too late. I can never trust you again. Please give me one more chance. I swear I'll never... Ryan raised his hand. She stopped talking. What you did was pure evil. There is no more of us. You destroyed that. And there will be no wedding. Ever. No, no. Don't say that. I love you. I swear I'll never cheat on you again. What hurts more than your betrayal is that you didn't come to me when you had doubts. Me, the man you supposedly love. I don't know what I would have said or done, but I can swear I would never advise you to have an affair with a married man. Only a marriage-destroying cheater would do such a thing. Silence. Caroline could almost feel the bony fingers of death ripping her soul, her every dream, from her chest. She struggled to breathe and felt the taste of bile in her mouth. What do you think your mom will call you when I tell her we're not getting married because you made love to another man? Caroline responded by screaming, No! I will make sure everyone knows what you did. All of our family and friends will know that we are not getting married because you had an affair with a married man. Ryan grabbed her left hand and nearly ripped her finger off, taking her wedding ring from his ex-fiancée. "No! That's mine! You gave it to me!" Her hands swung at him, trying to take back the symbol of their commitment. "You betrayed us. You betrayed everything behind that ring." He clenched it tightly in his fist. "It's over. I can't marry you. Please leave before I hurt you." The finality of those words hurt Caroline. She tried to speak, but her mouth could not utter a word. Instead, she made a sound like a dying man struggling for his last breath. Her eyes were huge, and her body trembled. Still not a word could be heard. There was silence in the room. Tears ran down Ryan's cheeks. "I haven't felt like this since my father died." Caroline dug through her memory, trying to find the right words to save her marriage. But nothing came out. Only then did she finally realize that she had been deceived. A sharp knock on the door interrupted the silence. Caroline recovered from the shock and pulled herself together enough to say, "My God, it's Scott! I'll tell him to go away. Please don't cause any trouble." Ryan grabbed the baseball bat he kept next to the door. "Scott, I'm not going to cause trouble. I'm going to kill him right here in the foyer while you watch." Caroline jumped up and tried to stop him. "He's not worth going to jail over." "I really don't care." He stepped around her. "I have nothing to live for, but if I kill him, I'll get even for the pain he's caused me." She tried calling his cell phone to warn him. The call went straight to voicemail. Ryan, holding a bat in one hand, opened the door. He was ready to throw the old man off his feet. Instead, he was met by 2 police officers. The bat fell out of his hands. It hit the ceramic tiles of the floor with a loud clang. The officers ignored him. "Excuse me, ma'am. Are you Caroline Bradley?" "What's the problem, officer?" The police officers stepped inside and closed the door. "Do you know Mrs. Loretta Jenkins?" "I work for her husband, Scott." The officers looked at each other as if they were in on a personal joke. "Is everything okay? Did something happen to Loretta?" "No, ma'am. But about an hour ago, Mrs. Jenkins killed her husband in the living room of their house." Caroline collapsed and fell to the floor. Ryan went to the kitchen and came back with a large pot full of water. He poured it over her face. Her once beautifully styled hair began to look like a drowned rat. It was several minutes before she could speak. "Oh my God, Scotty's dead," she sobbed. "Yes, ma'am." She shot him 6 times in the chest with the .38 caliber revolver, then reloaded it and shot him 6 more times at point-blank range in the face. Detectives said it was the most cold-blooded thing they had ever seen. She nearly blew his head off. The only sound was Ryan's laughter. The cops looked at him like he was crazy. "I guess she didn't let her husband go away with you this weekend after all." "We need you to come down to the station, ma'am. Mrs. Jenkins told her neighbor she's going to kill you for ruining her marriage. We have half a dozen squads patrolling the neighborhood, but they think you'll be safer downtown." Her face was pale, numb. "Don't come back, cheater." His voice trailed off as his ex-fiancée let out a horrified scream. The police officers half-carried Caroline out to their car. Ryan watched the blue lights fade into the distance, trying to comprehend how his life had become trash. 3 strong sips of whiskey loosened his tongue. The 4th awakened his writing skills. He began composing an email to everyone whose addresses he had. Family, friends, co-workers, church choir, everyone. Ryan titled it, "Why I Won't Marry Caroline Bradley, a Cheater and a Cheat." If you watch the news tonight, the lead story is about a middle-aged woman who killed her husband for cheating with a 25-year-old fool. I'm ashamed to say, but that cheater is my ex-fiancée. Yes, Little Miss Prim and Proper Caroline, who always looked down on her girlfriends for sleeping with everyone, is responsible for a 60-year-old man being shot and killed. Yes, she was sleeping with a guy older than her father. Now you know why I'm not getting married. Thank God it happened before I ruined my life by marrying a cheating fool. The police are hiding Caroline because her lover's widow is after her to kill her. I hope she succeeds." A couple minutes after he hit the send button, he had half a dozen replies. Then his cell phone rang. The first call was from the local newspaper asking for an interview. He sent the reporter a couple pictures of her in a tight bikini. Then he told him the story of her betrayal. He then agreed to do an on-air interview with the local radio station. Ryan spent the next 2 hours talking to reporters and answering emails. Most of them, including Caroline's friends and family, were very supportive. When he got tired of telling the story, he took a break and started stuffing all of Caroline's belongings into black trash bags. Eventually, he filled 4 bags. He dragged them to the garage near the dumpsters. Ryan lived in a bedroom suburb that hadn't had a homicide in 5 years. So the next morning, the local paper printed the headline, "Love Triangle Ends in Death." Television stations also descended on the civilian population. Each carried the evening news with pictures of the suspect on the run, as well as Ryan's ex-fiancée in a bikini and the victim. It was pitch dark outside when Ryan decided to finish his bottle of bourbon. The next morning, television crews arrived in time to film the locksmith changing the locks. Finally, he posted a sign that read, "No trespassing." 2 hours later, police found Loretta Jenkins sleeping in her car a couple blocks from Caroline's apartment. She was arrested without incident. Ryan was hung over when someone started banging on his front door. "Get out!" he yelled. "It's the police," came the reply. He opened the door. "Mr. Erickson, your fiancé wants to come home to explain what happened." "I don't have a fiancé. And this isn't her house." "This is my house. This will never be her home. Please take her things away because I might do something I'll regret later." He went outside and pointed to the trash bags. "This is all she had. I would appreciate it if you would tell her that I will never forgive her and I will never speak to her again. Never." He heard her yell from the patrol car, "Ryan, I love you!" He slammed the door shut and turned on the TV. He turned on the movie channel and leaned back in his chair to watch a black and white Western. No one had ever admitted who had sent the pictures that had made Jenkins's wife aware of the affair, but everyone agreed that Scotty's secretary had a very smug look on her face when she showed up Monday morning. Caroline had become the pariah in town. Of course, she was fired before she even entered her office. When the owner died and his wife's very expensive lawyers couldn't prove temporary insanity, the business was sold to a Chinese investor who promptly fired everyone and moved operations to a small island nation. Caroline's family and friends were united in their condemnation of the adulteress. The day after she testified in court, she packed all her possessions into her car and set out to start a new life. On her way out of town, she drove past Ryan's house one last time. The yard sign had a "For Sale" sticker on it. She tried to drive on, but she couldn't see anything through her tears. She stopped the car, closed her eyes, and tried to remember how she felt when he hugged her. She wanted to die. 6 years passed, and Ryan returned to his hometown for the funeral of a childhood friend who died a hero in Iraq. The Alumni Association had invited the entire class, and a large turnout was expected. It was the first time he'd been back since that night. His beautiful wife, Brooklyn, Brooke for short, squeezed his hand as he led her through the town square. She knew that every step carried very bad memories, and she tightened her grip. Ryan Jr., being a normal 3-year-old boy, didn't want to wait for his tardy parents and set out to explore. When his mom and dad stopped to look in the window of an antique store, Ryan Jr. ran without looking and bumped into a woman coming out of the store. She backed up a couple of steps and dropped her bag on the sidewalk. Several items fell out, including a condolence card. "Ryan Robert Erickson, stop running immediately!" A chill ran down the woman's back when she heard his name. The mother turned to the woman and said, "We spent 6 hours in the car and he has too much stored energy to walk." Ryan Jr. walked up to the woman and said, without prompting, "I'm sorry I ran into you, lady, and made you cry." "Are you okay?" Brooke asked. "I'm fine. Your son is a very well-mannered gentleman. You should be very proud of him." When Ryan Sr. knelt down to pick up the bag, he recognized the woman. Their eyes met, and they continued to stare at each other as his son helped him pick up the fallen ink pen. He silently handed the bag to the woman. It was then that Brooke noticed that her husband had tears in his eyes. She immediately realized who the woman was, and like a lioness protecting her cubs, she stood between the bad memory and her husband. "Don't ever come near my family." She glared at the woman, provoking her to speak. As Caroline slipped away, she heard Brooke add, "Never is forever, cheater. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Revenge cheating." I saw the image through the frosted glass in the door. It hesitated, moved backward, then forward. It hesitated some more, then the door opened and she walked in. The sight of her almost took my breath away. She was gorgeous. I think the phrase, "drop-dead gorgeous," was the best way to describe her. I got up from the table to greet her, and extending my hand to her, said, "Good morning. I'm Robert Dalton." She took the offered hand, shook it, and said, Sonia Harding. Would you mind sitting down and telling me how I can help you?" She sat down and crossed her legs in a way that only women seemed to know how to do. She showed off her long, slender legs and feet with 4-inch heeled sandals. I had not the slightest doubt that this was done intentionally. The lady knew what she had and used it to her advantage. She couldn't have known that I am a foot lover and that high heels are one of my greatest stimuli. I sat admiring the demonstration and waited for her to tell me why she had come to my office. Of course, I knew why she was here, but I needed to get to specifics. Knew why she was here? There was a sign hanging on the door she entered through. The sign said, "Dalton Investigative Services," so Sonia Harding was obviously in need of a private investigator. She looked at me as if assessing me, then said, "I'm here to offer you a 2-week all-expenses-paid vacation to Maui." I laughed and said, "Sure, what's the catch? You have to come with me." Still laughing, I asked, "Who put you up to this?" In a way, I guess you could say it was your wife. When I found out that she was the one my husband was cheating on me with, I decided that the best revenge would be to do the same to her husband. But unlike your wife and my husband, I'm not going to hide it. The question is, will you agree to it? I defiantly checked my calendar and then said, "My calendar is free until April 10th. It was March 3rd then. "So when do you plan to carry out this revenge?" "I'm ready to leave right now." "Right now? You mean as of this minute? How are we going to do this? We need time to book a hotel, buy plane tickets. We have to pack for the trip and everything. The airplane and lodging are already taken care of. What about the stuff? We'll buy everything we need when we get there." This must have just been a joke someone was playing on me, but I was curious enough to agree and see where this was going, so I said, "Okay, I'm in. Now what?" "Now we go to Maui," she said, stood up, looked at me and asked, "Are you coming?" I got up and followed her out of the office, stopping only to lock up the room, and then followed her out of the building where I had my first inkling that things might not be as I thought. There by the curb was a limousine with a chauffeur leaning against the front fender. The chauffeur straightened up as soon as she saw us exit the building and motioned to open the back door. I followed her into the car, and as the chauffeur got into it and got behind the wheel, she said, "To the airport, Frank." The chauffeur started the car and we hit the road. I reached forward and closed the privacy panel, then asked, "When did you find out that your husband was cheating on you?" "Yesterday." "You found out yesterday and you were able to organize all of this in less than 24 hours? Nothing that money couldn't take care of." "Money?" "My maiden name was Westerbrook, same as Westerbrook Industries." "Then I guess you can afford it, but it doesn't make sense to me. Your husband must be out of his mind. I mean, you're beautiful to death, rich, and he risks losing it all by cheating on you? It just doesn't make sense to me." "Neither do I, but he did it, and he got caught." Looking at her, I remembered reading about it in the paper. Randall Westerbrook and his wife Regina got lost at sea on their yacht on their way to Bermuda. It was a big story because it involved the Bermuda Triangle. I remembered that the story mentioned that they had a daughter left behind, and I was apparently being taken to the airport with her. "What do you think your wife will think if you don't come home tonight?" Sonia asked. "How about we don't talk about her and your husband while we're together? Talking about them will only spoil the mood, and I'd rather spend time together in a good, no, better, in a great mood." "It's a wonderful approach to our vacation. Tell me a little bit about yourselves." "Ladies first. Not much to tell. I was a cheerleader in high school, graduated and went to Wharton to get a bachelor's degree in business administration, and then an MBA, Master of Business Administration, before joining the family business. I am active in several charitable and community organizations and keep in shape by playing tennis, swimming laps in the pool, and running 5 miles a day at least 4 times a week. I'd like to do this every day, but sometimes things get in the way. I like any kind of music except rap, and I have season tickets to the Broncos, Rockies, and Denver Symphony. Your turn. At an early age, about the same as you. I played soccer and baseball in high school, and after high school I went to Metro State to get a bachelor's degree in business management, but I got bored with school and dropped out and joined the Army. I ended up joining the military police and spent my last year of service in the Criminal Investigations Division. After I was discharged, I joined the police force, where I worked nights and went to school during the day to get my bachelor's degree. After getting a degree in business management, I quit the police force because I was tired of doing nothing but writing traffic tickets. I liked the work I was doing in criminal investigation, so I decided to become a private investigator, and I am quite successful at it. She then inquired about what I do as a private investigator, and I gave her a sketch. It wasn't like some people think that I spent all my time following husbands and wives around trying to detect cheating, although there was some of that too. Most of my business was insurance companies where I investigated suspicious and fraudulent claims. I had 4 insurance companies that involved me in investigations as needed. By then, we were at the airport on the private jet side. The chauffeur pulled up next to a Gulfstream 500 with the Westerbrook logo on the tail. We boarded, the pilot got clearance, we taxied out, took off, and were on our way. Once we leveled off at flight altitude, Sonia asked me if I was ready to begin my revenge program. I asked what she meant, and she asked if I was ready to join the Mile High Club. There is a bed in the back of the airplane, and I, for one, am ready to use it. But what about privacy? There's a lock on the door. But what about the crew? Won't they find out? Of course they'll know, but they won't bother us. Mom, Dad, me, and my soon-to-be ex-boyfriend have always done that. But they know I'm not your husband. It doesn't matter. They're employees and they're paid well to mind their own business. But what if they tell the others? So what if they do? The whole purpose of this is for the crooks to find out about it. And I don't know how you feel about that. But to me, the more people who find out about it, the more humiliated Ralph will feel. I shrugged. If she didn't care, I didn't care. We walked to the back of the plane, opened the door, and I saw a small bedroom. Sonia started to shed her clothes, and I stood there watching. She looked at me and said, "I don't want to be the only one getting naked in here." "I'll join you, but it's not every day I get to see such a nice sight of you taking off your clothes." "Well, aren't you the devil with a silver tongue?" "Just stating the facts, ma'am, just stating the facts." When she was left in just stockings, panties, and high heels, she said, "I'm not going any further until you're as naked as I am." I kept my eyes on her as I undressed. In a word, she was magnificent. If I were asked to describe what a goddess looks like, I would describe Sonia. As I threw my boxers on the floor, she started to take off her heeled shoes, and I asked her to leave them on, please. She smiled and said, "My kind of man," and then pulled down her panties and stepped out of them. I made love to her. We stayed on that bed until the pilot announced that we were leaving on our final course for Los Angeles, where we would have to refuel before continuing on to Hawaii. We got dressed, and the flight attendant, yes, her private jet even had one, served us lunch while we refueled. Once we were on our way again, I was pulled to the aft cabin again. When I asked why she felt it was necessary to make love non-stop, or at least as non-stop as I was physically capable of, her answer was this: "Although I said it would take 2 weeks, there's always the possibility that I'll be called back for some emergency issues, so I want to make the most of the time we have." By the time we landed at Kahului Airport on Maui, I was a pretty exhausted dude. We spent half of our first day there buying clothes and toiletries we would need during our stay, and the other half lying on the beach and enjoying the sun. In the evening, we went to dinner, after which we returned to the high-rise she rented, or owned as far as I knew, where she did her best to make love to me one more time. The whole time, from the moment she walked into my office until our first night in the high-rise, I asked myself what was wrong with her idiot husband. She was gorgeous, a tigress in bed, and rich. What I would call the complete package, and he was cheating on her? It didn't make any sense to me. We spent 4 glorious days making love, dancing at night, and lying on the beach during the day before the thing she was talking about happened, and we were back on the plane heading home to deal with the urgent business that had arisen. The flight home was like flying to Hawaii, and I was a scorched shell when, stumbling, I stepped off the plane when we got back to Denver. In her limo that was taking me back to the office so I could pick up my car, Sonia asked me what I was going to tell my wife about my absence. "Nothing." "Nothing? And what, you're going to get away with it?" "I think it's time to stop pretending. To justify what I'm about to tell you, you have to put yourself in my shoes. A super attractive woman comes to me and says she wants to take me on an all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii, and I, of course, agree to the offer. But I did it knowing you were making a mistake. It was one of 2 things. There are 2 Robert Daltons in town. If your husband was cheating with the wife of the other Robert Dalton, then you picked the wrong Robert to fly off with. If he cheated with Mary Alice Dalton, I've been divorced from her for over 3 years. Well, I picked the right Dalton, unless the other Dalton's wife is also named Mary Alice. Anyway, I got what I wanted. I gave it to my hubby. If anything, Bob, I'd really like to spend a full 2 weeks with you." "I could say the same thing, Sonia. In fact, I'd prefer a few years if I could get them." "Would you consider spending time here with me? There are no sandy beaches here, but there are plenty of places to dine and dance, and, of course, lots of other things. As long as there's lots of other stuff, you can count on me." "What about your hubby?" "He was served with divorce papers the day we left." "Your place or mine?" "My place. It's closer," she said, and told the chauffeur to take us home. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.